Why is South Korea speeding up the return of US military bases? Are we really supposed to believe that it's not a sign of a rift between the two allies? Here to investigate, I'm Alex Jensen for North Korea Now. This whole development has been partly buried beneath domestic scandals and global headlines, but it could have a profound impact on the region's balance of power, including not only how South Korea relates to the US going forward, but also by extension the potentially opposing interests of China, Russia and North Korea. So what actually happened? Last Friday, Seoul's presidential office vowed to redouble efforts for an early return of 26 United States Forces Korea bases, citing the results of a meeting by South Korea's National Security Council and insisting that this is not a reflection of souring ties with the US, even though you could be forgiven for thinking that's exactly what it looks like. Just consider recent developments. I'm referring to Washington's open disappointment with Seoul for deciding not to renew its US-backed military intelligence sharing deal with Japan, GSOMIA, even though the US has stayed far more neutral on Tokyo's trade curbs against South Korea, which Japan tied to the issue of national security in the first place. And Seoul then calling in US Ambassador Harry Harris to ask Washington to stop expressing its displeasure. Plus, the American push for the South to pay more for the cost of stationing US troops on the Korean peninsula. And then slightly further on the horizon, we have the expected transfer of wartime operational control over South Korea's military forces from the US to the South by 2022. One could paint the image that we're hurtling towards a new regional alliance structure with more distance between Seoul and Washington. But it's also very possible this is mainly a negotiation tactic. You could say that Seoul is seeking leverage after being itself disappointed by the Trump administration's failure to mediate effectively with Japan. That South Korea does want to maintain strong ties with the US, but without having to concede ground to Japan. That by quickly regaining those military bases, it can use their considerable cleanup expenses when negotiating cost sharing with Washington. And of course, getting back land that had been used by the US has major social and financial benefits. Remember also that Seoul and Washington agreed all the way back in 2003 to relocate 80 bases in South Korea to Pyeongtaek and Daegu. That process is well over half complete already, but there are still around 30,000 American forces here, serving both South Korean and US security interests, not least given the proximity of China. But, observers will ask, how much further is President Donald Trump willing to compromise even his own security interests in favoring a more transactional approach to alliances and diplomacy? It's this uncertainty that makes Seoul's negotiation position all the more challenging.